All right. Why did the man throw the clock out the window? He wanted to see time fly. We got someone that really knows there. Thank you. Okay, well, how can you tell if the clock is hungry?
See if it's 8.
He'll go back 4 seconds. Good guess, though. Good guess. Last week we talked about the fact that we all have limited time. Limited time in a day to do all the things we want, but really limited time on the earth. We all have a limited number of days, and we don't know exactly how many days we're going to have. We hope it's a lot of them. We hope so, but we don't really know. And Moses, in the psalm that he wrote, it's a psalm, a prayer and lament to God. In Psalm 90:12, he says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." So if we live our life as though we have limited days, then the idea is that hopefully we would make better decisions with what we do with our time because it's limited. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about prioritizing our time. The key to getting the most out of your time is not simply adding more time to your schedule. You can't do that because we all have the same amount of time in a day, and working like an extra hour or staying up an extra hour, that works for a day or two, but after a while that catches up with you, right? And then the people that you want to be around or be with, they don't want to be with you because you're tired and crabby. So really, the key is not to try to add more time to our schedule. The key is to schedule our time around our priorities. What's the most important thing to us? Who are the most important people to you? So, many of us don't do that, though. For many of us, we just kind of go throughout our day, and whatever happens, happens. And whatever I have time for, I get done, and then whatever else I don't, well, oh well, too bad. And sometimes we end up wasting so much time on things that they're really not important in the bigger picture, right? And especially, they're not important when it comes to the priorities of our life. And yet, if we're not careful, we can find that we just waste and spend a lot of time on those unimportant things. So, all of us do this. All of us spend time on things that really, truly, if we were honest, are a waste of time. I mean, TikTok videos, right, or Facebook videos. Isn't it easy? You're in there, hey, I wonder what my family's doing, wonder what my friends are doing, and you kind of look, and all of a sudden this video comes up, you're like, oh, that's interesting. All of a sudden, 20 videos later, right? 20 minutes have gone by. Now, sometimes it's fun to do that. I'm not knocking that. Some of the videos are pretty fun out there. But if you just spent 20 minutes of time that you hadn't intended, that 20 minutes is coming out of somewhere else, right? So, all of us have people that we want to be around and that are important to us, and things that we want to do. These things are important to us, and we want to make sure we spend our time with them, right? Family, our job, if you want to keep it, you got to spend some time at your job, right? Your spouse, children, grandchildren, time to study if you're a student, right? You got to make time to do that. Exercise, hopefully, hobbies, golf. Actually, golf makes both lists, right? Sometimes it depends on you want to spend time doing it, maybe not spend quite so much time. Oftentimes, at the end of the day, sometimes we find that we don't actually have time for the people that we wanted to spend with because we wasted time doing something else earlier in the day. And maybe it's because you're too busy in the moment doing something that's urgent but not really important, but now it's due and so you got to do it. But most of the time, I think it's because we were not intentional enough with our time. Now, for years, I would go to these different pastor trainings, or I'd go to a conference and I would hear different pastors or different speakers talk about this book by Stephen Covey called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I would hear him say, this book is in the top 10 books I've ever read. And, let me ask you, raise your hand if you have read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay, all right, that's fine. Have you at least heard of the book before? Yeah. So like me, for years, I'd heard of the book. And finally, after this one training, I said, okay, I'm going to go and read this book. Now, I don't have time to read for pleasure. Most of the reading that I do, the majority, is I'm preparing for sermons, or I'm reading up on the news, or I'm doing that. But I listen to lots of audiobooks. I really enjoy that. So I found that I could check that book out of my library for free, and I listened to it. And now I am telling you, it is in my top 10 books. Not including fiction, because man, there's some great spy stories out there. World War II, Air Spy, right? Those are the top ones. As far as nonfiction goes, it really is. And I want to just look at a couple of the things. Caleb, yeah, there we go. Perfect. So he has Stephen Covey has 7 different things that he talks about. This is one of them, about spending your time. And he makes this quadrant. Quadrant 1 up there, it's things that are urgent and they're important. Oh, I got to preach tomorrow. Oh, I better get a sermon done, right? It's urgent and it's important. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but it's important. Quadrant 3 down the bottom, it's still urgent, but this is not important stuff, but somehow it's due right now and it's got to be done. And then quadrant 4 is the not urgent and not important. In quadrant 1, what we find is that if you're not intentional about your time, if you don't schedule your time and make sure you're careful and diligent, a lot of people spend a lot of time in quadrant 4 wasting time on things, they're not urgent, they're really not important, little things you wanted to do, or you get sidetracked doing something, maybe watching TV or just who knows what, right? And then, because you spent a lot of time there, a lot of people then will spend a majority of the rest of their time up in quadrant 1. Because they didn't prepare ahead of time, they didn't plan ahead of time, they didn't work ahead and get stuff done, so they're wasting lots of time, and then all of a sudden, this is due, this is urgent, this is important, I got to do it now. And you go, not you, of course you guys don't, but people find themselves going back and forth between quadrant 4 and quadrant 1. The problem with quadrant 1 is that urgent and important activities, when you find yourself doing that, a lot of times you're in crisis. This is due right now. I got to take care of this. Here's this deadline, right? There's always a pressing problem. There's always something that, how did this sneak up on me? I got to get this done. And here's the result. What happens is high stress, oftentimes burnout. You feel like you're always putting out fires and doing crisis management. So, the idea is that instead that you would spend as much of your time as possible in quadrant 2. That you would be working ahead, that you would be putting first things first. You would take care of the important stuff. You would say, okay, I know this is coming up in 2 weeks or whatever. You would work on that stuff while it wasn't urgent. You weren't stressed about it. And the more you can spend your time working on quadrant 2 things and not quadrant 4, the less time you find yourself up in quadrant 1, right? So I was terrible. I'm just being honest with you. I am preaching to myself this morning. I have my whole life struggled with managing my time very well for a couple reasons. One is I'm normal, just like you guys. 2, everything's important to me. If it's on my list, I feel like this is here because this is important. And what's the old saying? A job worth doing well? No, a job worth doing is a job worth doing well, right? It's something like that, how it goes. And so I take that to heart. In anything that I'm doing, I want to do it really well. So I spend an exorbitant amount of time on something that should just take probably a short. So I am preaching to myself, right? I was a terrible student. I would know I had a test coming up. It would be the night before. All of a sudden I'm cramming. None of you have ever done that, right? I know you did all your studying. That paper is due tomorrow? Oh, shoot, I better start writing something. So I am guilty of this. This sermon is for me. So I was thinking about this. If you're going to be wise with your finances, you need to do what? You need to have a budget. If you're going to be wise with your finances, you need to stick to your budget, right? Anybody can have a budget, but if you don't stick to it, what good is it? So if you're going to be wise with your finances, you know how much money you have, you budget it out, and you stick to it. It's the same with your time, right? If you want to be wise with your time, then budget out your time, get a schedule. By the way, Stephen Covey, what's he most famously known for? The Covey Planner. He was the guy that made those. Everybody had them for years before you had it all on your phone or on your computer. The Covey Planner, that was him, Stephen Covey, with the planner. And you write in your calendar and you keep track of your notes of your stuff. That was him. So if you want to be wise with your time, budget it out, plan it out. You know what? I really want to make sure I have time to take my wife out on a date on Friday, but in order to do that, I got to have this stuff done on the house. I got to have this church work done. I got to take care of this. This guy wanted to meet about, I got to make sure I do these things. Otherwise, what happens Friday night when my wife is ready to go out and I haven't done these other things? Now, they could be important, probably, but now those things have moved up into quadrant 1. And what I really want to do is the important thing to me, but what I have to do is something else that's important, not as important, but now it's urgent, right? So budgeting our time, figuring it out, just think about financially, putting it on your schedule and then protecting it. And things always come up, right? I mean, we all know that. Things come up and there's exceptions to the rule. That's just the way it goes. But someone who budgets their time wisely might remember that the last time they had every second of their day scheduled for the last 3 months, things just kept coming up, ironically. So someone who's wise with their time might leave some time in their schedule. And if you don't have time every day to leave some, at least a couple days a week, leave a time where you can catch up on something. Or you could work ahead on something new that came up, right? That's just all part of budgeting. So, when you look back over your life, I am sure that like me, you want to be able to say that you spent at least the majority of your time with the people you really wanted to spend it with, or doing the things that you really wanted to do and needed to do. And so what we really need to do is be intentional, think to ourselves, who is the most important to us? Or what is the most important things that I want to do? Okay, well, I got to work. And I got this, and now prioritize them. And then be diligent and spend your time as you intentionally plan on doing it. Because if we don't prioritize and schedule, the busyness of life will catch up to us, right? So some things we do are wasting time, some of it's just busyness. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? And sometimes, not church volunteering and committee work, not that, but sometimes we need to maybe say no to some things if we're too busy, right? Thank you, Rose. Sometimes we just have to say no, right? Because isn't it easy, if you're like me, isn't it easy to overschedule ourselves? Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Oh, sure, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. When am I going to do that, right? I don't have time for that. So the question we need to answer for ourselves is, what and who is the most important to us? But then the second question is this, it's probably just as important. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do if you need to? And some of you already have this down, and I'm just preaching to the choir. Thanks for not sleeping. But some of you, what are you going to change so that you can actually have time for the things that are priorities for you? What change might you need to make? So, this is good advice for anybody, right? Whether you're a Christian or not, no matter what, how old you are or how young you are, this is good advice. Manage your time, budget it well, be intentional about it. But for Christians, there is another priority for our time that we are called to have. Yes, I hope your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, I hope you make time. I hope that those are a priority. And even hobbies, don't hear me wrong. We need hobbies. We need to have fun things to do, to get a break from work or to get a break from stress, right? We need things to be able to relax and things that can give us joy and rejuvenate us. Absolutely, we need those. But we also need something else, and that's God. And the scriptures tell us that not only, and Jesus tells us, that not only are we supposed to make God a priority in our life, but God should actually come first. And not only should God come first, but that not only should God come first, but that relationship that we have with God should then determine the other priorities we have in our life. And when we find that when we put God first in our life, that our priorities change. And the way we view other people and other relationships change. And maybe when we start to put God first, we realize, I should really invest a little more time in this person. I should invest more time in this relationship. Maybe I should invest a little less time in this friendship or in that person. Right? Because our priorities start to line up with God's priorities. Now, putting God first doesn't mean that that's all you do, that you go into your office or your room and you're reading the Bible and praying 12, 16 hours a day. If you have time to do that, that's awesome. Go for it. Most of us do not, right? Most of us do not. But, and guys, don't go home and say, that was a wonderful dinner, honey. Time to do the dishes. Tell you what, the pastor said I had to make God a priority, so I'm going to go pray. Once the cleanup is done, call me, and then I'll come back and spend quality time with you. No. Right? Maybe if you're putting God first, maybe you're called to help your wife clean up and do some of that stuff. I don't know. That's between you and God. Here's what I do know. In the Scriptures, we don't actually see the word priority. It's not in there when it talks about our relationship with God. Instead, it talks about, in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, the believers were encouraged to seek God. That was the word or the phrase that they used, to seek God and to seek Him earnestly. Psalm 63:1 says, "You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you." Psalm 119:10 says, "I seek you with all my heart. Do not let me stray from your commands." So, by seeking God with our whole heart, we end up prioritizing God over all things. And then we end up reordering our priorities to line up with what we believe would be God's priorities. Proverbs 28:5 says, "Evildoers do not understand what is right, but those who seek the Lord understand it fully." To understand what is right and good is to seek God first and to put God as your priority. Jesus said this, "Do not worry, saying, 'What shall we eat?' Or 'What shall we drink?' Or 'What shall we wear?' For pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry for itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." When it comes to your days, or your months, or your years, seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these other things will be given to you as well. So, as Christ followers, we are called to seek God first, to put Him first in our lives. And I know you're busy. Again, I'm not saying you should be going home and spending 2 hours every day in the Word and prayer. That'd be great if you could. That'd be great. How about 20 minutes? How about 23 minutes? 23 minutes is the length of the average sitcom. Right? Because they used to be 30 minutes on TV with 7 minutes of commercials throughout. But you can stream them now, most of them 23 minutes. There's nothing wrong with relaxing at the end of the day or the middle of the day and watching a sitcom or rom-com. If you're with my wife, that's what you're watching. Nothing wrong with that. But isn't it easy? Isn't it easy to binge watch shows? Right? All of a sudden you've seen 3, 4 episodes. Shows I watch tend to be an hour long. Now, I don't usually have 4 hours to binge watch. I might have 23 minutes, so sometime in my day, right? This takes intentionality on our part. It doesn't happen by accident. We need to be intentional. If you say you don't have time for God, just think of this. God has time for you. God is always there waiting for you. But Jesus didn't say, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock, ready to kick it in." No, He didn't say that. He says, "I stand at the door and knock. If anyone opens the door, I will come in and be with him, and he will be with me. It's up to us. The choice is ours to make. God isn't going to force himself on us. So, questions I want to leave you with today, just to think about, if you haven't already. What and who are most important to you? What are the things that are most important to you? And maybe that doesn't mean you have time to do them every day. Maybe you fit something in there once or twice a week, right? Who's the most important thing to you? Doesn't mean you can spend 24/7 with them, but are you making time for the people that are most important to you? The only way to do that is to make sure you're not wasting time down in quadrant 4. And then my follow-up question is this. If you find that in general, as you go throughout your week, you don't have time to do those things that are most important to you, if you find that you don't have time to spend time with the people that are most important to you, even if it's a phone call, what do you need to do to make a change? What needs to change in your life? What do you need to give up? What do you need to say, maybe no for now, but not forever, right? Some things, we go through seasons of life. And saying no to something now doesn't mean it's forever, right? But maybe it's something where we say, I'd love to do that, but it's a no for now. I like music, you know that. I play the piano, I play the bass. I used to play the guitar, and then I just got busy. I haven't played the guitar in probably 25 years. I still have 3 guitars. I've given some away, but I still have 3. And someday, I'm going to pick up the guitar and start practicing. But I play music, and I know, unless you're more gifted than me, you don't just pick up an instrument and play. You have to practice. You have to spend time practicing that. I don't have 20 to 30 minutes a day every day to set aside to practice. And picking up the guitar once a month for 15 minutes, that's not enough, right? That's not enough. So someday, I've been telling myself for 25 years, when I retire, I'm going to pick up one of my 3 guitars at least, and I'm going to start playing again, and I'm going to relearn how to play and do it. But right now, I have other things that are more of a priority to me. That's just the way it is. So maybe for you, maybe there's something where you say, no for now, but not forever. Maybe someday. I don't know. Those are questions that only you can answer. Here's one more question. What makes it difficult for you, assuming that it does, maybe it doesn't, what makes it difficult for you to put God first in your life? What makes it difficult for you to rearrange your priorities and reorder them so that they are lining up with God's priorities? And if that is difficult for you, what do you need to do differently so that you can make that change? Please pray with me. Father, we do love you. We are here because we do. Would you help each of us, God, to examine our schedules, examine our time. Are we putting you first in our lives? Are we making time for you? And are we arranging our schedules, our priorities, so that they line up with you? God, would you help us to be intentional with our time so that we have time to spend with those that we love and time to do the things that are most important to us. And help us to line those things up with your priorities. We ask that, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.